In this training, I'm going to go through how to use block files to optimize pay-per-click. So before I dive into block files, I'm just going to quickly go over how to use search term reports and targets and the actions that you need to do when you're using a block file. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. I did another video on how to perform a search term report analysis. But for the purpose of this, generally what we get from a search term report is we get data at the search term level that gives us KPIs, impressions, clicks, orders, units, sales, and spend, and calculated KPIs such as CTR, CPC, ACOS, etc. From that, we are able to perform specific strategies. So I break it down as targeting strategies, bidding, throttling. Within each of those strategy types, if you run through what you do in each scenario, you will do something with the targets, you will do something with the bids, or you'll do something with budget throttling or placement throttling. Generally, you're not going to be able to perform day parting unless you want to be creating a bulk file for every day of the week and changing and pausing and enabling ad groups consistently. So I left this one out specifically. I wouldn't recommend doing it. But if you really wanted to do it, you could do it in a bulk file. So anything that you want to achieve on the targeting side, bidding or throttling, you can do in a bulk file. So before I get into the nitty-gritty stuff, things you need before you can even optimize your pay-per-click through a block file is you need to download the block file. So you'll want to go to your campaign manager, you want to go to block operations, and you'll want to get to this page, which is just going to look just like this. So we're going to want to download data based on a period, depending on what you're trying to optimize. So if you optimize weekly, you want to run for last week. If you want to run it for last, let's say 60 days, and you want to do a whole sweep of targeting, because generally the more data that you have here, you'll want more data so that you can see which ones have not performed well. If you're doing bidding, you generally want to do about a week, 2 weeks, really depends on how often you optimize. And throttling, that one, it could be a week as well. Placements, I would say try to have a lot more data to kind of make that assessment and make that call on if you're adjusting for your placements. So I'm just going to show you how to do it for sponsored products. But it's very similar when it comes to sponsored brand and sponsored display. They look a little bit different, but they're more or less the same thing. You won't have any placement options. You won't have bidding strategy options. But they're going to have a couple additional columns, but the way you change your bids and all that is basically the same. So what you'll need here is you'll want to include, you may want to include campaign items with 0 impressions, because maybe those targets you actually want to increase the bids for. You want to include your placements. You want to include sponsored products data. You'll want to include, that's about it. Unless you want to also include sponsored products search term data. This will allow you to kind of aggregate data and then come up with these strategies here. Again, if you want to learn more about that, check out the latest video that I did there. And then another one that they kind of added in is called guidance for sponsored product. So I generally don't use this, but you can. They basically just made an Excel file with strict rules within them to kind of help you know what parameters you need in the block file to make it successful. So let's just say you downloaded that, you click spreadsheet for download, you're going to get a spreadsheet just like this. And I'll kind of go through this in the next step. But before you touch any block files whatsoever, click on this visit the bulk sheets portal, and you're going to get to this page. You should spend a whole day, spend 2 days, really go through every single one of these and understand and look at the table examples that they give in order to just kind of recognize the names and the parameters for each. because you're going to be, if you're decided to use a bulk sheet, you're going to be using a lot of Excel formulas and filters, etc. So it's really good idea to get used to it. And then on top of that, I would also jump over to, if you're not strong with Google Sheets or Excel, I would recommend going over and getting some training, just YouTube something on best practices for navigating through Google Sheets and using filters and pivot tables, because all of those foundational skills are going to be pretty important when you're dealing with bulk sheets and being able to edit these things in mass. So enough with that. So like I said, with the bulk sheets, you should be able to do everything with all these strategies, including creating campaigns. So I'm going to just show you on one cut up of a bulk sheet, but the concept is generally the same. So every line, when you download a bulk sheet, you'll see all of these lines. You have the product, the entity, the operation, and then all of this data is going to be very specific based on what the entity is. So if the entity is going to be bidding adjustment, I already know that's placement information. And then at the campaign level, you'll know that you'll have the budget, you'll know you'll have the bidding strategy. And then for ad group, you would just have the ad group default bid, and that's it. And then when you have product ad, so these are your product ads. So you just picture yourself in Campaign Manager, and then as you kind of click through all of those links, there is a line for every single one of those. So you have product ad. So product ad will include the SKU that you assign to it. So if you wanted, for example, to add another SKU in, all you had to do is copy this row, duplicate it to have it below it, and then just add in another SKU. So that when you upload it, that product ad is going to get added to that campaign. And then you have keywords. So keywords are your targets. So you're going to have the bid, and you're going to have the bid text, and you're going to have the match type. And then we'll come down here and we see negative keyword. So same thing. You're not going to have a bid because negatives don't have bids, but you're going to have the target, and you're going to have this text. So you're going to have negative exact or negative phrase, and that is the match type. But you'll see all of this if you kind of study your own bulk ops sheet and see what is already negative and see what that line looks like, and then look at your keywords and see what those lines look like. And then once you look at it enough, you'll kind of understand where all the pieces come together. So in this section here, I only talked about keywords, but you're going to have one for product targeting. You can do negative product targeting and so on. So, but the concept's basically the same. The format is exactly the same. Outside of, instead of keyword text here, you're going to have a product targeting expression back here. But outside of that, it follows the same pattern. One thing I did want to note here, or a couple things, is when you create a brand new campaign, these campaign IDs and ad group IDs, these are two very, very important columns. So when you create a brand new one, you set these campaign IDs and ad group IDs the exact name that you want to name that campaign or ad group ID. So you can understand this if you look into here and then go into this create campaign section. They explain that pretty thoroughly. But if you're downloading your bulk sheet, you'll notice this campaign ID and this ad group ID. Those are just code. It's an identifier for that specific campaign and for that specific ad group, and it's going to be unique. So anything that you apply to that unique ID is going to get applied to that specific campaign and or ad group. So for instance, if I apply a campaign ID for this one, say it was like 001, and then the ad group was 002, I'm going to have 001 here, 002, and then I'm going to have keyword. And then if I want to create it, I'll set the operation to create, add in my keyword, my bid, and the match type. And then when I upload it, it's going to upload to that specific campaign and ad group. So it's really important to get those two right and don't mess with that one. So that's why I always will download a bulk sheet and then just duplicate rows to whatever I want to create. or whatever I want to apply bulk operations to. So that's how you would create one. You would just, this is an example here of a creation. So you would have exact match, name it however you apply a start date. Manual is for keyword campaigns, but if it's an auto, this one would say auto, or I believe it's automatic. Can't really remember. State you have enabled or paused. You have your budgets, your SKUs, your bids, your keywords, your match types, strategy, placements, and then placement percentages. So you have to have all of those elements in there to be able to create these campaigns in bulk. So if you want to create fresh campaigns, this is how you would do it. If you want to add things in, like new keywords, add new negatives, as you would in these strategies from graduating and applying negatives, then you'll want to change the operation to update. So there's only two operations. You got create and then you have update. So it's capital U, PDATE. So when you have them when you're creating and graduating brand new keywords and negatives, you're going to create. But if you want to update something, it's generally for bids, like bids and placements and budgets, things that already pre-existed. So that's kind of what that works. It works very similar to flat file. So now we're going to kind of go through every scenario. So graduating keywords, applying negatives, we kind of talked about that through the creation and just making sure that campaign ID and ad group ID kind of match up. Then let's just go on the bidding side. So we want to change our bid to something else compared to what status quo is. So you'll have your bulk ops. Basically what I'll do is I'll apply a filter to this, and then I'll apply the filter where entity equals keyword or product target, depending on what I'm looking for. And then that's going to filter down everything and look at the data at this level. So this one here is your keyword bid, and then this is your actual keyword and phrase. So all I really want is to change this $1 to something else. So if you change it to 50 cents, and then this here is changed to update, then this bid, when uploaded, will change from $1 to 50 cents. So that's how you change the bid, and that applies to anything. So you just apply a fixed bid to any of this stuff. So if you're using formulas, which you definitely can, in bulk sheets on to the right over here, you'll see a bunch of KPIs. Those KPIs being sales, spend, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're running, say, revenue per click, you can go take your sales divided by clicks, multiply it by a target ACO. Say that's like 25%. That's going to give you a bid. That bid, you can then just create as a formula. So if you were to create it as a formula, it would just be equals, and then you click on the sales column divided by the clicks column, and then you can multiply that by 0.25, and that will give you revenue per click as a bid. So that's kind of how you would do it as a formula. If you get a little bit confused with formulas, please again use YouTube, understand how formulas work and how you can propagate them over multiple rows and really utilize Google Sheets for what it was meant for. So we used bids there, and then if we want to do budget, pretty straightforward. Filter for campaign, because I know budget only exists at the campaign level. And then we're going to change this daily budget from 10 to whatever budget you want. And then we're going to upload. Placement throttling. So let's just say we wanted to set our placements. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to filter for bidding adjustment, and you're going to come over here and you're going to change these percentages from, let's just say I wanted to change them all to 900. I'm going to change this to all, say 900. And so on and so on, to whatever campaign you want to set here. And then if you have this in Google Sheets, what you'll want to do is then hit File, Save as Excel. And then from Excel, you'll want to upload back into this section here. Upload, notice they only accept Excel files. When you are working with bulk sheets, make sure you're only working with one tab, and there's only one tab in that bulk sheet that you upload. The other part to it is, let's just say I have a bulk sheet just for placements, delete everything else. So if you're doing placements, you know the entity is bidding adjustment. As long as you have your campaign ID in here, because that's the only thing you need for this category, then you can get rid of campaign, ad group, product ad. So what I typically do is I filter for everything that's not bidding adjustment, and then I'll delete all those rows. What I'm left with is just bidding adjustment. because then when you upload it, then you don't get confused with errors. Errors don't stack on each other. And because sometimes you might accidentally upload something and then there's an error in, say, the bidding side. Like, let's just say you put a letter here. It may kind of reject the entire bulk sheet altogether, even though your placements were done correctly. So that's generally the gist. If you do get errors in bulk sheets, it does happen a lot, but it might not have caused an actual row error. You can actually read through these error reports, and they're pretty thorough for what they describe as. So as long as you can filter around and try to read what are they trying to say there, you can easily tell what happened. So an example or very common thing that always happens is, for instance, maybe you had a keyword in here that you were trying to upload, and maybe you used a character that wasn't accepted, like a money sign or something like that. So Amazon didn't like that, so they rejected it and didn't upload anything else. All you really need to do at that point is just delete that one row and just and upload everything else. There's many cases where it partially would have uploaded everything, and in that error report is only going to show specifically those errors or lines that didn't get uploaded. So you can actually take that error report and edit what you need to edit in there and then re-upload that actual error report. You don't need to create a new bulk sheet or edit the original. Just edit the errored bulk sheet, make the changes in there, and then re-upload. Again, make sure that you're only uploading the bulk sheet tab. The error report does come with a couple tabs in there. So yeah, hopefully that kind of helps on how to use block files to optimize pay-per-click. You're going to just get better the more you use it, and it's going to get a lot easier. So if you like this training, do like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.